Welcome to another episode of Halftime Adjustments. It's your host, Eddie, and my man, G. Witt.
Tighten up, baby. Tighten up.
Tighten up. Well, playoff weekend, wild card round to be exact. And here we are, man. Another matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. A big rivalry game. You knew the game was going to be physical. You knew the game was going to be nasty. And it lived up to that billing for the most part. But, you know, we came out on the short end of the stick, 20-13. Over the Ravens. Again, the home team has not won a playoff game in this series, and it's still held true today as the Ravens come in and pretty much enforce their will midway through the first quarter and on through the rest of the game and win this game, walking away 20-13.
Well, and the thing about it is, and first of all, congratulations to the Titans for having a great, good season, winning the division title and everything. But the thing that you saw in this game really was, again, to put it plainly, always expose your weaknesses. And what we saw today was the fact that their defensive line beat our offensive line, for pretty much most of the game. Derrick Henry had no room to run. And I was asked the question earlier, why didn't they go to the deep passing game more often and everything? But when your offensive line is not winning, you don't have as much time to wait for routes to develop. And then on top of that, you have receivers not really getting open, despite any kind of protection that he may have had. So it was just one of those games where, bottom line, Baltimore beat us. That's all you can say. And I got to say this. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to say it so everybody will understand. If you don't want them dancing on your logo, you don't let them win the game.
You got to win the game.
You got to win the game. If we win the game or if we're winning the game, there's no dancing on the logo. But because we were losing and then they got the interception to really put the game away, hey, if you're going to stand on their logo before the game, they're going to stand on your logo when they close the game out. Bottom line.
Right. So, right off the bat, three things that was key to this game. So, number one, and you kind of mentioned the offensive game plan was stagnant. The offense was stagnant. You know, they come out, put up 10 points, and then didn't have an answer after that. You know, the Ravens took our punch early, and they counter-punched, and we didn't have a punch to come back with. 209 yards total offense, 12 first downs, and 4 of 12 on third down conversions. You know, that was key in the game. I thought Arthur Smith could have threw the ball more on first down than he did, especially when they had, you know, they were playing a six-man front too. So Green Bay set a blueprint, if you will, during that game. And you saw the Ravens mimic that, and they gave the Titans issues up front across the offensive line the whole entire game as far as it goes for the run game. Number two, there was no defensive adjustments after halftime. I mean, I would even go back before that, even before halftime. So you saw the Ravens come out in the second half, and you saw them start throwing the short, quick out routes to the fullback, to the tight ends, making the tight ends
wide receivers
wide open. Why? Because the defensive backs were playing 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. So you came out, and I'll give the defense credit because for about a half, I'm going to say, they played pretty good. 4 sacks in the first half. They got some pressure, made Lamar do some things. They lost rush lanes on the touchdown run, which you got to keep your rush lanes. You got to keep them retained. But after halftime, they did not adjust. They kept the same look, didn't make no changes. Baltimore took advantage and said, hey, y'all going to keep running that same defense, that same scheme. We're going to take advantage and take the ball right there in the flat and let our guys make 5-6 yards a pop. And so
here's the need for a defensive coordinator.
Right. And so what happens after that? They start going deep because now you biting, you trying to get up and make the play real quick. And you saw what happened. They made it too easy for Lamar Jackson. I mean, I'm just going to say it like that. They made it too easy for him in the second half. You know, first half, he was holding the ball a little bit longer. They was able to get to him. For the most part, he had an easy game, you know, after the second half because there was no adjustments. And hence, like you said, defensive coordinator is needed.
Well, and I would say this. Once you let him out and he ran and got that touchdown, that flipped the game for him.
It did.
You know,
it got him hot.
Before then, he was struggling.
Mm-hmm.
But once you lose containment and allow him to get out in the open field and allow the video game to take over, then you got problems for the rest of the game. Let's just be real about this. And I know people don't want to hear this, but the tackling, as far as I was concerned, was really poor. They had opportunity after opportunity to get off the field on third down. And when they just had to make the tackle, they miss way too many tackles. I know I had a guy on Twitter tell me that, breaking down and waiting for the guy to make a move is something they teach you from Pop Warner on up. I disagree totally, because the bottom line is, in the NFL, and that's all I'm talking about, if you hesitate, what's the word? You beat.
You go get beat.
It's just the way it goes. So breaking down, waiting to make a tackle like they've been doing all season, they never corrected that flaw in the game. And there's another thing that I will say this, because I'm really hard on this defense this year, especially after the way they played last year. I thought they played overall pretty good. But this year, again, you can't have your leading tackler be a cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't have that.
Right.
Your leading tackler on any defense should either be a linebacker or a lineman. It should never be a cornerback. If a cornerback is making that many tackles, something's wrong.
It's a long game.
It's a long game, because either guys are catching the ball on him, or he's having to come up and run support because nobody else can get to the run.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm going to stay on this because we said it at the beginning of the season. This defense was not going to win you a championship, because when you play against good teams and you running this same old simple scheme, teams are going to beat you. It's the NFL. They're going to figure it out and they're going to beat you.
Right. And they did. And they did. Because, they didn't make any adjustments at halftime, and you saw it, and they were just running the same. And that's easy. That's any level of football.
Yeah.
Excuse me for that noise. Any level of football, if you don't make any changes to your scheme for the second half, because you got to, like you said, you got to give credit to the Ravens coaching staff. They saw what we're doing. They made some adjustments, some changes. They took advantage and got Lamar the rhythm after that long run, like you mentioned. He got flowing, his juices got flowing, and he got into a rhythm in the game. And then once he got going, it was just hard to stop him. Number 3. Here's my third thing. You got to be more aggressive in coaching. Again, like I said, on first down, throw the ball, loosen up the defense. They already need to go run the ball. And so you run the ball, and he did this a lot, which I thought this was uncharacteristic for Arthur. And I say this, and I give you the reason why. He went first, second down run, majority of the first half, even in the second half. Why do that when you got 6-man fronts pounding the line of scrimmage and you're not getting any blocking and no kind of zones to run in? And so, that's, to me, that's he outcoached himself today.
Yeah, and while I don't disagree with you, and normally I'm always the one saying, you're a running team, you run the ball. So my biggest problem was that after you see that you're not winning the line of scrimmage, you didn't adjust to that. Right. And in that regard, I agree with you. The other problem you had, in all honesty, was that your receivers, with the exception of A.J. Brown, were really not winning. On the outside, Corey Davis was struggling, and then he ended up not being in the rest of the game. So once that happened, then that was it. I'm not sure. He obviously was injured.
Yeah, Vaver didn't say. He just said he wasn't able to go. Yeah.
But they never said what the injury was, if it was a concussion or whatever, but he was sitting on the sideline and wasn't able to go. There was a couple of passes where he had an opportunity to fight for the ball, and he ended up getting the ball stripped out. And I understand that. It happens. Jonnu Smith had the same thing happen to him. Caught a pass and got lit up by the safety and dropped the ball. It all the way overall. I just say it's just like that. Like I said before, the tackling on defense was horrendous. I mean, you see Baltimore, as soon as you make a catch, they're on you, they're tackling you. Derrick Henry gets to the outside, they're not wasting the time, they're going for his ankles and getting him down. You cannot continue to play defense like this, And I hate to say it, but I'm going to be honest about it. This reeks of Jeff Fisher coaching on defense. Because as you stated, they made no adjustments at halftime. And Jeff Fisher was notorious for being stubborn about his defensive scheme. And it always made it seem like he's going to make it work regardless of how the game is going.
Yeah.
And that's what you saw today on defense. They were determined to make their scheme work regardless of how the game was going. There was no mid-game adjustment. You saw Baltimore, once they saw that A.J. Brown and the tight ends were beating them one-on-one, what did they do? they switched to zone.
Yep.
And
Got him out of
they
man
didn't
coverage.
wait to halftime to do it.
No, they
They
didn't.
actually did it in the first quarter.
They did. Yep.
So that's what a defensive coordinator does. And that's what you can't just do. You can't just run a scheme. A scheme doesn't do nothing. People figure out schemes. It's the NFL. They're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make adjustments in game. Just like the offense has to, so does the defense. And what you saw today was that neither the offense nor the defense made in-game adjustments.
Right. And so, and then, I thought they should have got John in the game, more involved in the game. Of course, he had to help out on some chip blocks and stuff.
But he had to block.
He had to block. That's right. And so, whether Corey Davis is hurt or not, he just wasn't there. He wasn't effective at all. He wasn't even a threat in the passing game. You saw him, even when they went back to man, they started playing a safety over top on A.J. Brown.
Right.
If Tannehill would have took just a little second long on that interception, A.J. Brown had one-on-one coverage, and he had his man beat. But
he was predetermined on that one.
Yeah, he was predetermined, and that didn't beat us. What beat us was there was no adjustments. Couldn't stop the run. Couldn't stop the Ravens. Like I said, 7 of 12 on third down. They put up over 236 yards rushing. You cannot beat a football team when you get up that many rushing yards, and that many big plays.
But you're 7 of 12 on third down because you got people with opportunities to make tackles, and they don't miss it. And when you got somebody who last year was a sure tackler, two people, Kenny Vaccaro and Adoree Jackson.
Kenny
Vaccaro, both of them last year were sure tacklers.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, I almost give Adoree a pass almost because he's coming off an injury, but Kenny Vaccaro, he missed a couple of tackles on third down that if he makes them.
Big third down conversions. Yep.
They're punting the ball to us, and you give your offense an opportunity to get into a rhythm to start making some plays. With what you happened, with the exception of the second and third drive that we had, the offense was never in a rhythm. They were starting and sputtering. They never got into a flow. And Arthur Smith, again, going back to your point, he never made an adjustment. He never went hurry up.
Mm.
He never sped up the game,
right,
to try to get his offense in a rhythm.
Right.
So, it's just one of those games where, bottom line, they got outcoached and they got outplayed.
Once again, outcoached and outplayed. And, even if Arthur Smith would have spread it out the offense more to open up the run lanes, which he didn't, and to your point about playing hurry up ball and playing more with more speed, more aggression, that'll wear out those big linemen. Baltimore has some big interior linemen. They're tough to run on. And if you speed the game up, those guys get tired. And then you come back and you hit him with Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter. And that's when he starts busting open and getting out of the box. And so, again, no adjustments on either side of the ball. Coaching was terrible once again. And now we're looking at what do we do with all these free agents on this football team coming up for the 2021-2022 season. What do we go from here? First off, you got to get a defensive coordinator, and you don't even know if you're going to have an offensive coordinator come. Once those things start to fall in place, those vacancies as well. So
well, here's the first thing, first thing you got to do is take a breath. J-Rob, Amy, Mike Vrabel, they all three of them got to take a breath. Because you don't want to do anything over the next, I'm going to say, 4 weeks. Out of emotion or anything. So you got to take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, first thing you got to do is when you call Mike Vrabel in for your end of year review, dude, you have got to hire a defensive coordinator.
Got to.
You got to hire a defensive coordinator. You cannot keep doing this. You had a top 5 offense with a nickel defense. And I mean a 5-cent defense. You were in the bottom of the league.
Right.
You were the worst on third down.
Mm-hmm.
Almost historically worse.
But
you're lucky you had some good games towards the end of the season where you were a little bit better on third down, but for the most part, you were historically bad on third down.
The ironic thing about that whole thing, G, is they led the league in turnovers. So how do you have a defense that can create turnovers, right? But you can't stop nobody.
But here's the thing about it, Eddie. This is the thing you got to remember. When did they get the majority of their turnovers?
Right.
Beginning of the season.
The beginning of the season. That's right.
When you come back to the second half of the season in mid-November, they weren't getting a lot of turnovers then.
Not that many.
You had one today and you only got a field goal out of it. Actually, you had two because he missed that 52-yard field goal. That's equivalent of a turnover. You had great field position.
Great field position.
And all you get out of both of those are field goals.
And then you had good field position and you punt on 4th and 2.
You punt the ball. And don't get me wrong. I know analytics say you had a better chance and all that kind of stuff. But you also got to remember that their defensive line was killing our offensive line.
Yeah.
So Vrabel, unfortunately, he did the Jeff Fisher thing. He played it safe, punted the ball, yielded to his defense, which is the weakest part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And they went right down the field, kicked the field goal, put them up by 7.
And I got to agree.
And really, when you stop and think about it, if your defensive players make tackles, that might have paid off for you.
Might have. You're right.
But with your defense not making tackles, with their poor technique, then you're going to get what you get. You stopped them just enough. Well, actually, you didn't stop them.
No.
A penalty stopped them.
Right, a penalty.
And I'm just going to be real about this. We keep talking about Vrabel need to hire a DC. You're a bad DC when you play a game against the Indianapolis Colts and they punt one time because they had a 4th and 7, but anything 4th and 5, they went for it.
They go for it.
So I'm sorry, you have no respect as a DC in this league. None.
So, I got to agree with Ed McKinney. He says, to be honest, the defense held the Ravens to 20 points. And if you would have told me that before this game, girl, that the defense is going to hold the Ravens to 20 points, I'd have been great. And I agree with him. But the offense only scored 3 points, from the first quarter on. For 3 quarters straight, they scored 3 points.
Well, 6 points.
Well, yeah, they scored 10 in the first quarter and they kicked the field goal in the fourth quarter.
The rest of the game.
Yeah. And so, if you would have told me that before the game, I would have been great. I would have been happy. I'm good with that because the offense can score. We know they can score. But today was not a good game plan.
Well, here's the thing about it. Let's be real. I know our offensive line got beat up today, but let's remember this was not the offensive line we were really envisioning for this team. You lose your best lineman in Taylor Lewan. No ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Right.
And you're on your third defensive tackle, left tackle.
Uh-huh.
You got your left guard, even though he went and played, he's hobbled with an ankle injury. Ben Jones has been fighting off injuries the whole season. Bottom line, he's been fighting off injury the whole season. So you got all these things happening with your offensive line. Granted, you play the weak teams, you beat them, but you play the strong teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Indianapolis Colts, the Baltimore Ravens. You struggle against those, especially when the Green Bay Packers, especially when they're scheming against you the way they did.
Right. And so as an offensive coordinator, he's got to make those adjustments, right? He's got to come out with something to help his offensive line. He's got to run routes that don't take so long to develop. He's got to mix up, I saw somebody say, I think it was Dion, run some gadget plays. You got to pull out all stops in the playoffs because you're not guaranteed.
I will say I was surprised he didn't roll Tannehill out more than what he did.
Right. Exactly. You didn't see hardly any of that.
And also no bootlegs or anything like that. And again, I'll be the first one to say it's easy to pick on Arthur Smith and say, he didn't do a great job, and he'll admit it. But the bottom line is really, in all honesty, what we said at the beginning of the season, Eddie, is it came to fruition. Yeah. Your defense can't hold water.
Right. And you knew it was going to catch up, and you saw it catching up in the second half of the season. Like you said, once you got past those weaker teams on the schedule and you played those strong teams like the Green Bays and the Colts. Now, granted, the Colts were missing half their defensive line when we played them in Indianapolis. But, again, once you play those tough teams, the Ravens, people like that, you knew this team was going to struggle if the offense could not move the football. And you saw it today.
Exactly. And that's the key. That's the key you got to remember. Again, like we always say, defense wins championships.
That's right.
Offense sells tickets. It's good to have a dynamic offense in the regular season, but in the postseason, you got to have a good defense. You got to have let me just put it like this. You got to at least have a decent defense. in order to make any splash in the offseason.
Right. They got to at least be able to make some stops.
Yeah, because your deep again, like we always say, the playoffs, they pick apart everything that you do, and they what you like to do. Defensive coordinators will shut down. It's the same thing Bill Belichick did to us last year when we played against New England. He knew we wanted to do the big plays. He decided, I'm going to let Derrick Henry run, and I'm going to cut out the big plays. Hence, it became a close game. In the Baltimore game, we were just on. Bottom line, it was our day. Bottom line, it was our day.
And like
I
said,
this year you had to understand, after you played them this year and beat them in overtime, and you knew they were having all their players back on defense, you have got to be ready. Defensively, I thought we started off great. But then that ugly hand of missed tackles started showing up in key moments on the drives where you couldn't make any stops. The 3rd and longs, you had them in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, and they converted them. You can't keep winning football games doing that. And a lot of that had to do with missed tackles, and a lot of that had to do with scheme.
Right. Exactly.
It had to do with scheme.
Right. And even like I said, the defense played the way it played, and it started off good with a good game plan. But I believe, though, if the offense would have been better prepared or would have played better with the defense, with the few stops the defense made, you probably would have seen a different outcome of the game.
Absolutely.
It was just that the offense was so stagnant today.
Yeah.
When the defense was making plays, when they were getting stops, when they were forcing turnovers, or forcing punts rather, the offense couldn't respond. After that 10-0 lead, they could not respond, and so that ultimately
and why couldn't they respond? Because Baltimore defensively made adjustments.
They made adjustments. They went zone. They started bringing a little bit more pressure, contain the edges of the offensive line. Didn't lose containment on the edge, and you saw the result today. And so
they had their defense was gap discipline.
Oh yeah,
they
definitely
gap discipline in everything they did. Whoever was on the end, they didn't even try to go out the Tannehill on play face and everything. The guy on the end, 99, I think it was, he was playing good eye discipline, man. He was watching to see if Tannehill had the ball. And if he didn't, he was crashing down behind Derrick Henry and make sure he didn't have a cutback line. That's good defense.
They were well prepared.
And again, I'll go back to this, and I'm going to say it all off season. The tackling on Baltimore was stellar. Anytime anybody caught the ball, as soon as they caught the ball, they were tackled.
Oh yeah,
nobody
definitely
was hesitating, waiting for them to come down and make a move.
Right.
And I'm sorry, in the NFL, that's the way you have to tackle.
Exactly.
Now, people can agree with me all day long if they want to, but I'm going to stick with that one. Good defenses, that's what they do. Pittsburgh does it. Indianapolis does it. Chicago does it. New Orleans does it. Good defenses, that's what they do. They tackle well. Last year, we did the same thing. Last year was actually one of the best tackling defenses I've seen in a long time from the Titans. And this year, they went back to Jeff Fisher.
And that's what you get when you don't have a defensive coordinator.
That's right.
You get those things.
And somebody said it ain't the coaching. I beg to differ, because the bottom line is the coaches are allowing it to happen.
Right. But you know what? Other than the coaches, the players got to take some accountability too. Because and I agree, Taylor. Taylor said it. He said it for me. He said tackling is hard. Tackling is all about heart. Playing aggressive and physical is all about having heart and courage to do your job.
I'm not absolving the players.
Yeah.
But I will put it to you like this. 2 seasons ago, when the receivers were struggling catching the ball, we were seeing drops all over the place. What did they do? What did the coaches do? What did Vrabel and J-Rob do?
Well, they got rid of Rashad Matthews.
They got rid of receivers. You ain't gonna catch the ball. You ain't gonna play here. All of a sudden, after that, what did you see?
People start catching the ball.
They start catching the ball. So the bottom line is, your coaches are allowing this poor technique in tackling and this poor tackling that they're doing. And if you weren't going, and it's on the players, true enough, you got to have heart to tackle. But if your coaches are allowing you to make these weak techniques to not get hurt, then that's what you're gonna then it's on the coaches. Bottom line, because you had a whole team of players not tackling. It wasn't just one player.
Mm-hmm. David Long Jr. played a solid game again today.
He played another solid game.
Yep.
He played a solid game. Malcolm Butler played a solid game again.
He did.
And like we said last week, it's been his best season as a Titan.
Mm-hmm.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Coverage wise and tackling. He led the team in tackling. A cornerback. If I'm a linebacker, I'm upset about that. I'm serious.
Yeah.
He's having to tackle not only receivers, he's tackling running backs, he's tackling tight ends, he's tackling quarterbacks.
A lot of decisions to be made for the Titans going into 2021, 2022. A lot of free agents. Corey Davis, Adore Jackson, Jonnu Smith, Jayon Brown, just to name a few, but a lot of directions this team can go. Defensive coordinator, coaching staff. Do they make changes in the defensive personnel as far as coaching wise goes?
I think they should at least get a new secondary coach.
That might be very well a step to take.
I will say it. I'll say it until he proves me wrong. Midget is not the guy.
Well, you can tell about a secondary. I mean, it's a mirror to things. The DC and the secondary coach. On top of that,
and you need a new coach for your inside linebackers, because I don't know what
Rashad Evans. He was quiet today.
He's been quiet all season, man. Except for when he's making a penalty.
Yeah, and today was he got an offsides penalty one time.
Yeah,
and then didn't show up anywhere else on the field at all.
No, not really. For the most part, he did okay in making sure that Lamar Jackson didn't get loose. But if you go back and look at the 43-yarder, he got out of his lane on containment because he went outside and there was nobody behind him to keep that hole closed.
Right.
So, he and again, we've been saying it all season. Something is up with him and Kevin Byard. Because you don't go from being among the league best at your position to not being effective in a game at all.
Right. And since you brought up Byard, and I'm gonna go back to what you said earlier about, somebody was talking about you break down and make a tackle. What happened to Kevin Byard on that long run by Lamar Jackson? He tried to break down, he got ran right by, didn't he?
He got, again, if you hesitate, you're beat. It's like I try to tell. That's why I try to tell people. Look, man, tackling is it's 95% desire, and maybe less. I don't know, but but technique has a lot to do with it. But you have to want to make the tackle. That's why it surprises me that Kenny Vaccaro was missing so many tackles. Yeah. I just can't. I just don't understand it.
Right.
I really don't. And Vrabel's not going to say anything. Shane Bowen is not going to say anything. The linebacker coaches are not going to say anything. Anthony Midget is not going to say anything. But they cannot truly be NFL coaches and look in the mirror and say they're happy with this defense. If they do, then Amy and J-Rob need to possibly look at taking over and hiring the coaches from Vrabel. Vrabel's a good head coach. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think he's good. He makes decisions that you may not like, but he has reasons behind them. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is his defensive staff was pretty bad this year, except for maybe the D-line coach. The D-line coach, I thought, did the best he could with what he had, simply because you let your leader go. And he actually did pretty good. But linebackers, especially inside linebackers, I don't know what happened or what happened this year. I don't know if they were upset because, the inside linebacker coach who they had last year went to Detroit. I don't know if they were upset because Dean Pease retired and Shane Bowen and Vrabel didn't want to use Kevin Byard in the way Dean Pease did. I don't know. But I do know they need to look in the mirror, and they cannot look in the mirror and say, we did a good job. Not with this defense.
Right. Thank y'all for joining us for another episode. Thank y'all for joining us for another season of
That's
Halftime
right.
Adjustments, man. 2020, 2021, it will go down as one of the most memorable seasons. Thank you for the love, support during the whole season. And we brought the show to you. You know, we'll be back once free agency starts and draft and once
Ooh.
football, when the business picks up in the off season, you know, football season's all year round. And so I will get some of these comments on. Dion says Vrabel's not going to say anything because he knew this was his fault all season long as far as the defense is concerned. And I will give a shout out, man, to the my backdrop here, the 6 officers that responded during the bombing.
Other direction.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, and you can't see it. It's on this side over here. This guy here, Officer Wells, is my brother-in-law, man. We'll give him a shout out. He was on the show a couple times, man. So I just want to give him a shout out, man. Tell we proud of him, and thank you for all your service for the community.
I'm more proud of him for the fact that he's actually wearing a Titans jersey.
Well, let me say that too, because I was gonna say something about that. I think you brought us bad luck, man, with the Titans jersey. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, man. But you can't wear it no more. Don't wear that jersey no more.
No. Just go ahead and put it in a box, man, and frame it and everything, and put it in your man cave. But don't put it back on. Wear your Bears jersey, man. Right. He probably had a Bears jersey on underneath that, man.
He might. His long johns probably Bears. But anyway.
Eddie, but seriously, since our season is done, in all honesty, and I know we'll be back, I guess, next week because of playoff games and everything. Got some good matchups coming up.
Yeah. But
really, I would say this, in all seriousness, with this team, it was great to see how they, in spite of COVID, they still put together an 11-win season.
Most definitely.
You had a 2,000-yard rusher.
Yep.
You had a quarterback that threw 40 touchdown passes. You had A.J. Brown had another 1,000-yard season. Corey Davis almost had his first 1,000-yard season. In spite of all the injuries on the O-line, you still had a 2,000-yard rusher, which is good. And again, Derrick Henry, I thought he had a Hall of Fame season. So you hope that, again, he takes his time, takes some rest, let his body heal up, and he's going to get back to working because he doesn't like the way this ended. Same thing with AJ
he's frustrated.
Brown. Yep. Yeah, he was definitely frustrated today. Again, J-Rob, he has to go back and he'll look in the mirror on himself because nothing, in all honesty, he did in the offseason this year worked out for him. Right. And for people who are screaming about get rid of the GM, every GM goes through that. Every GM goes through that. Ozzie Newsome had bad offseason. You got to remember, Ozzie Newsome was the one who drafted Kyle Bowler for Baltimore, and he didn't pan out.
Right.
So
exactly.
you got to remember, and he's considered one of the best GMs to ever have the job. Right. So all GMs have a bad year. It happens. But J-Rob is definitely got to look at some things and have to make some changes. Hopefully this year's draft class comes back next year in better shape. Isaiah Wilson, I don't know. I honestly, in all honesty, I think the boy has some mental issues that he needs to get straightened out.
I would be surprised.
And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he's on this team after the season, though. I would be highly surprised if he's not cut after the season.
I would be like this. I won't be surprised, but if he is, then I'm expecting him to have some treatment for his mental issues. Yeah. There is something to me mentally that's going on with the boy, and I think they need to get it checked out.
Yeah.
Darrington Evans, Christian Fulton, they made minimal contributions at best. Hopefully we get them back. Adoree Jackson will be back because remember they signed his 5th-year option.
Right.
You don't know if Corey Davis is going to be back. You know they want to have Jonnu back. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. They're going to have to look at the offensive line to create some valuable depth there. And somehow They're going to do something. They're going to go out and find some young offensive linemen. They're going to have to they're going to have to draft a quarterback, man. You're going to find one. Mm-hmm. I know it's hard, but you're going to find one. And you got Ryan Tannehill for at least 2 more seasons. And I know Vrabel is high on Logan Woodside because he's a worker, but the bottom line is you don't know what you're going to get with him. You're going to have to go out and find your quarterback that's going to be able to lead this team into the future. Rashad Evans is going to have to look in the mirror and figure out what he did wrong this year. So does Kevin Byard. The only person in that secondary that really can look back on this year and be proud is Malcolm Butler, as far as I'm concerned. So it's a lot that they got to do. But J-Rob has got to look at this team and look at his decisions. None of his free agents worked out, exception of Jack Crawford. You know,
what happened to him today?
Well, again, right. you didn't win the battle at the line of scrimmage. Right. You know, Jeffrey Simmons played hard, but they let it out last week that he's been battling injuries.
Well, you knew that, yeah.
So that's not surprising.
Yeah.
So, you know, the thing about it is, in all honesty, is that Vrabel has got to look in the mirror and just face the fact that he's not a DC. He just got to face that fact. The 2 times you tried to be a DC in this league, your defenses were in the bottom of the league. The 1 year at Houston and this year with the Titans. And the only bad thing about this year was the fact that you had a Super Bowl worthy offense. You had a Super Bowl worthy offense. If you had a good defense, you had a Super Bowl worthy offense.
Yeah, you did.
So I look at it from that standpoint. There's a lot to be done, a lot of soul searching. Even players who will be coming back next year, they got to look at some things. Yeah. I mean, Ben Jones, Nate Davis, you know, Roger Saffold, you know, they're going to have to find the right guard, because obviously I don't expect Isaiah Wilson to be a viable player next year. He may still be on the team, but I don't think he's going to be a viable player, in all honesty, because unless he gets his mental issues straightened out.
Again, thank y'all for joining us for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Eddie Arnell, G. Witt, tighten up, man. Titans fall baby. To the Ravens, 20-13. Congratulations to the Ravens. Yeah. They are good. They're going to be tough to beat. They're hot. They're rolling. And, you know, they're going to give problems whoever they have to play next, whether it's Pittsburgh,
whether it's Pittsburgh or Kansas City,
Yeah, whoever it is, Buffalo, Kansas City.
Buffalo, Kansas City.
They're going to be tough to beat, and it's going to be some good playoffs. And I agree with you, Deion. We've got to find some edge rushers in the offseason, get some young guys to come in. He says sign JJ Watt. JJ Watt might be able to get you a year or two at a high level, but you know, who knows?
And well, put it like this: you sign JJ Watt. I'm just gonna say it. That's a better signing than Clowney.
It looks that way. That's right. It looks that way.
No. Looks are not deceiving. It is that way.
I mean, what you have to see. You got to see what they're gonna do if he comes here.
Well, let's be honest about it, Eddie. We know JJ Watt only has a couple more years because his body is breaking down on him. Yep. But the bottom line is, as a player who has a lot of heart, JJ Watt is his tall above Jadeveon Clowney as far as being on the field. He's legit. Jadeveon Clowney is really not that legit.
Thank y'all for joining us again.
What? I didn't go off on a rant. I'm just saying.
I didn't say nothing.
I think you were looking for me to keep going. I was like, no, I'm just stating facts. You know I'm right. Come on now.
The play action. So here's a question: say, why we were hard on the D, but what was here in the play action? The play action was they kept running the ball on first and second down. So now play action ain't gonna work, right? Yeah. And so here's the other thing. Once Baltimore saw that they control the game, control the offensive line, and stop the run, play action ain't gonna work anymore.
No,
it's not.
No.
It's not.
No.
And you saw what happened. The Titans had to start running 2-man routes for the most part, 3 sometimes.
To keep protection.
What? Right, to keep protection in. And guess what? They're going to double team receivers. That's why you saw Tannehill hold the ball a lot.
Yeah.
So,
that's why he took those 2 sacks.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Nobody was open.
Right.
Bottom line is, you know, if you can't run the ball, play action is going to be pretty ineffective.
Right.
And unless you do something, and like we said earlier, Arthur Smith did not adjust to what the defense was doing to him. You know, and again, the bottom line was your offensive line was losing the battle at the line of scrimmage. There's not a whole lot you can do. There really isn't.
No,
you know, play action isn't going to work if your offensive line cannot hold up. And bottom line was they couldn't hold up.
And you know, and most of the time they were rushing 4. Sometimes they were bringing 5. And when you bring 5, you have to block your man one-on-one. And that's when and if you can't do that, you're in trouble. because there's
Well,
nobody else after
and
that.
let's be honest. They ran a lot. The Titans always run two tight end sets running the ball. But when your best blocking, one of your best blocking tight ends is constantly getting beat at the line of scrimmage, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot. And that's what was happening. Swain was getting beat at the line of scrimmage quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Jonnu, and Michael Pruitt, but Swain was getting beat a lot. I think Pruitt got beat a lot too. And it's hard. It's hard. This is why we said earlier in the season when they were talking about Arthur Smith in for head coaching situations. This is one reason why I said he probably needs to stay one more year, because you have to be able to
make
adjust to what the defense is doing.
In-game adjustments, not just at halftime.
In-game adjustments, and I think this year he struggled in that. He overall, when he got on the roll and they got in the rhythm, that offense was hard to stop. We even said it, we can score on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
But when the defense had them down and they couldn't do what they normally would do, it was hard for him to come up with anything that was going to help.
Well,
and I will say this too.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not blaming him by any means because he had a great season. But some of that also, when you got a veteran like Tannehill, he has to recognize the fact that they're struggling. He could easily make that decision to go hurry up in the middle of a drive to try to get this thing rolling. He could easily do that. So, that's a maturation growth for Tannehill as well. He's never been in an offense like this before. So I understand his doing the job like he's supposed to. Bottom line is he on the field, he can be the coach on the field and make that decision.
Yeah, definitely. Again, guys, we thank y'all for the love, support of the show for this season of Halftime Adjustments. Eddie down there, G Witt.
Tighten up, baby.
Join us on the Midweek Heat podcast for more playoff coverage. That's weekly. Check us out, man. It's on Spotify, it's on Google, it's on Apple, it's on all your podcast platforms. So check it out. It's a good show, and like I said, you hear more in-depth coverage across the playoffs and going forward. So check that out coming up this week. Join us for that. But Eddie down there, G Witt, Halftime Adjustments. We'll be back. We'll be talking more next weekend and coming up about the free agents for this football team and the offseason and where do the 2020 Titans go for the 2021 season. So Eddie down there, G Witt. Thank y'all, man, for supporting us. Join us next time live here on Halftime Adjustments. We are out of here.
Dude, did you see the score?
No, I didn't.
Man, Cleveland's beating Pittsburgh 27-0.
Okay. We out, man. See y'all. Peace.